Welcome, everyone. I hope everyone's having a great day. I hope you guys are ready to hear my beautiful voice this entire time.
I feel myself.
I got the lube ready.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, me as well.
Oh, by the way, this is a PG-13 KhaZix seminar, so we cannot swear.
Alright, well, I should just leave now.
No, I'm kidding.
I don't think you can ask an
I'll
Australian.
contain myself as much as I can.
I don't think you can ask an Australian as a curse. Let's be real. All right, so what's our first topic?
All right, so first question is... Wait, I didn't write the people's names next. Did I fuck up? Oh, did I mess up?
I mean, probably should be.
Already lost.
Oh, man.
That way
All
you
right.
can unmute them when their question comes up.
Yeah. I'm bad at hosting. Okay. Do you want me to scroll up and find them, or do you want me to just ask the questions? And then, after these questions, we could start taking names?
You can
just
the
what
question.
was the first question? I can find it. And
Okay,
then-
so the first question is, what jungle paths should a beginner/mediocre KhaZix take?
that was one girl 3 balls, I believe.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so while we're answering this question, just look at the question. Look at the next question. Just write their name next to it while we're doing this. Who wants to start that one off as far as pathing? Because pathing does change depending on your experience. So,
I guess what I will say, I guess the best thing for a beginner KhaZix to do is probably to stick to a few paths, a few short, just effective ones, and to remember a few things about pathing in general. So I guess the most basic path and what most people do is you go wolves, red buff, blue buff, and look for a gank. And that that gets you to level 3 and it ensures you're able to gank in 3 minutes. And that's very basic and a lot of junglers like Lee Sin and that sort of do that sort of path. And then if for some reason you can't gank, you can always just transition into clearing your blue side and then recalling, getting 2 long swords, and then going from there. So that's the most common jungle path, and that's the easiest one to start a snowball, because if you can get that early gank off, then you get an early kill or whatever, and then take the game from there.
so you're saying blue wolves red or red wolves blue? Buff,
Wolves blue. I mean, did I say wolves? I'm retarded. I meant raptors. Sorry, raptors red then blue. Oh my god.
Yeah, that's a way different path, bro.
Yeah, what the fuck? So raptors red then blue is generally want most people do. Or you could go even raptors red and then wolves and blue or whatever. If you want to get a bit more farm and it's not really looking like you can get an early gank if the lanes are pushed or whatever.
Yep, I think that's the most important thing, is that you want as much flexibility as possible when you are newer to the champion. So if you do raptors, then red, then blue, you can, like you said, look for a gank. If you don't have those opportunities, you can go into Scuttle, you can go into Wolves and Gromp. I mean, either way, you have a lot more options available to you once you finish your first clear. You're not funneled into one option.
Yeah. And doing that clear as well, it's a little bit safe from invades, at least your main buffs, because you knock out the first the buffs pretty much straight away. The only way you can get it stolen is either you get some really weird cheese and they come into your blue at 2 minutes 30 or something, or if they start your blue, but then your top lane should or bot lane should just be scanning that for you. So if they don't do that, well, that's solid kid. And what was the other thing I was going to say? And just with clearing in general, for beginner players, it's good to remember. This is just a general tip, not just KhaZix, but try and time the first camp you clear. So remember, 100 seconds from now, this camp's going to die, and then remember the path which you take after clearing that camp, and then if you don't really have that much else to do on the map, you can pretty much just kill your camps on spawn, and then you'll know which one's going to spawn and when, and then you can just go from there. And it's also good to try and clear from top to bottom as well. So if you start if all your camps are up, try, if it's any viable for the game, you can clear, like, say, Gromp to start with, and then go Gromp, Wolves, Raptors, and then Krugs, or vice versa. But yeah, there's a lot of times where you shouldn't clear the whole jungle straight away like that. Like, I don't know, you might be able to get a gank off mid, or have to respond to something, or counter gank or something.
One thing I have seen some junglers do before they have like that mental clock of when camps respawn is like just like a summoner spell. You can just write it in chat, Raptors, 1620, or enemy Raptors 1620, and they just time it in chat so they don't have to think about it. That might be something that can help you if you want to time camps without having to have that internal clock, I guess. Just
That's
write
good
it down
tip, actually,
or put it in chat, one of the two.
Yeah, because it's very easy to get distracted and completely forget. So that'd be very good for beginners.
Anyone else have any other thoughts? Nutty?
Well, I was just gonna agree. I think Wraith Start is probably the best for beginners. But the thing is the harder clears are a lot better and more efficient, but you need to learn how to do them. So, like, learn to kite camps. It's probably the most important thing to learn is kiting camps, because it saves you so much HP during your clear. So that's like the most important thing to learn for beginners is while you're doing those beginner clears, you can still try to learn how to kite camps correctly. But that's about it. So Wraith Start's probably the best for beginner. You guys good? Next question?
I'd say the
I can
standard
elaborate.
buff wolves buff clear is also a very safe one.
That's the one I wanted to talk about. I actually think that path is really, really good for KhaZix right now, because you can take that path and invade into the enemy jungle second buff. Because when you do the bottom side buff instead of the Raptor start, every jungler in the game you're gonna clear faster than them. Because Maokai's E's like nerfed now, so he doesn't do it faster than you. But you're gonna invade into the blue buff before it's like even halfway done. And if you have pushing lanes on your like middle and top, you can get a kill like every time. And it puts you super far ahead. And like generally, like it can snowball the game to where you're not going to get outskilled extremely hard by the tank junglers, because they're already going to be fucked. And if you can make a play after that, you get a refresh on double buffs. It's like game over.
Yeah.
I was wondering, are you guys?
Yeah, that clear is always good too for beginners, because you're always really healthy, and like you start learning more options, like invading or ganking or going for more camps if you can't find either. Like it kind of teaches the fundamentals of jungling, and it's pretty good clear. Yeah.
Oh, true.
So is that it?
If you guys can hear me okay, I was curious if you were recommending like buff wolves buff as like for beginners, or if you guys actually think that's the correct path regardless of experience.
Well, I do full clear, but
I think Raptor Start needs a bit of more experience. I think it's a lot harder for newer players to kite the Raptors properly. But that's just me.
I agree. I think buff wolves buff for newer junglers is better, and then once you get a little bit of experience, do Raptors red blue, because then you have more adaptability options in your path. So if you do buff wolves buff, you're level 3. It's an easy clear. It's the 3 easiest camps for you to clear outside of maybe Gromp. So there's no real danger of you falling low, that kind of thing. You can just get your clear done and then go straight into ganking, that kind of thing. Raptors are really when, like you said, you know how to kite it, you know how to how to adapt to the game, and what to clear after.
I think the buff wolves buff clear is extremely good, and maybe even like a little underrated. I think it's even good in high
it's
elo.
good.
I would recommend low elo players just do the buff wolves buff, especially because you don't like newer players to KhaZix or low elo players don't generally know how to create early game leads if they're behind. So the best way is to just create a lead by invading the enemy jungler. I think it's super good, especially against the current meta junglers.
Yeah, that's why I was recommending the buff wolves buff, is because it forces you to control the early game And it forces you to like start learning those situations where you have to go for a gank and invade or back to farming camps if you have either or neither up. So it really does help low elo players kind of learn the game.
Yep.
That makes sense. I'm just gonna say, if you can hear a vacuum, let me know because
We can hear a vacuum.
Yes.
Alright, off it goes. Off it goes.
So, Nutty, you said you go for a full clear. Can you elaborate a little more on that? Like, for example, where do you start, and like, why do you think full clear is the way to go for you?
Well, so I guess I'll start why I think it's good. Well, for first reason is on KhaZix, rushing level 4 is super strong because at that point when you're level 4 and no one else is, because he does full clear really fast, is that he controls the entire map. So if you go for an invade, the enemy jungler can't duel you. And if they try to collapse on it, you win the skirmish pretty much no matter what if your team follows up, etc. So like in higher elo, when I hit level 4, I can just control the enemy jungle by getting vision down, or I can just take their camp in the face because they're going to be isolated. And if they ever try to contest me, then I just win the 1v1, or I win the skirmish if the enemy team collapses and my team collapses. Even most of the time, I can like pretty much kill someone before the enemy team collapses if I ever catch someone isolated. Also, your ganks are really strong because once you hit level 4, that's when your base damages start like hitting decently hard. So you can pretty much force ganks because you're so far ahead in levels and base damage that it's really strong. For a full clear, I do blue, Gromp, Wolves, Wraith, Red, Golems.
Nutty, I just want to make sure you keep in track of the questions that are being asked.
Yeah.
All right.
So,
What were you saying?
I had a few more follow-up questions for that, if you don't mind. But if you're gonna say something, go ahead, man.
Oh no, that's fine. You can hit me with your follow-up question.
So for sure. So you're saying like the base damage difference from level 3 to 4 is pretty much like the difference
On his Q and level. So like in a one level is equivalent to like 700 gold.
I got
stats.
you, yeah, for sure.
So
And then you said you start blue Gromp, like as opposed to Raptor start for a full clear, because like you would get level 4 without doing Krug. So like what's the trade-off there? You think?
well, the trade-off is it's a lot safer. So when I finish my full clear, if I can't find anything on the map, if I go and invade, get the vision down, I look for kills. I don't have anything. I already have 1100 gold, so I can back and get. Or I already have 1k gold, so I can back and get blue smite and a longsword no matter what. Even if I like failed to find a gank or anything, it's really like fallback. It's safe to fall back on because if I recall and I couldn't get anything on the map, then I can get blue smite longsword, and then once I get back onto the map, I can control most stuff. Like my ganks are good, my clear will be good, etc.
So also,
And you'll be able to get a pink ward as well, or a control ward, sorry.
Yeah.
With that full clear as well, if you need to. So it gives you a bit of flexibility there.
Yeah.
Because early pink wards can really help a lot.
Yeah, and a pink ward that early is super strong to control the map with. What was your next question, Virtue?
oh, I was gonna say since you're blue start, it's machete. Are you getting machete or talisman?
I'm getting machete.
Okay.
Yeah, everyone's getting machete by default now.
Yeah, because in the beginning of season 7, the first patch, they buffed the lifesteal and the damage on it, so they just over buffed it. So machete's super strong right now. Is that all the questions you had?
Hold on. Do you go machete into the Raptor start?
No,
No,
Absolutely
you go
not.
Talisman.
definitely
Okay,
not.
yeah. I was going to say, am I doing something horribly wrong? Alright, cool. That's good to know.
Yeah, that's why I start blues, so you have infinite mana sustain and your clear's just overall faster because of machete. Alright, so next question.
I
Did you guys...
actually just want to, before we move on, one thing I did want to ask: how fast, just that people who want to pick up KhaZix know, how fast should they look at finishing these clears? I'm talking like the 3 camp clears,
I mean,
the 5
really-
camp clears, the
yeah.
6 camp clears. How fast do you expect to finish those? And I'm not, regardless of your leash, like if you were to do the leash list, how fast do you think you could finish it? Just to give a general baseline.
Leashless? I'm not sure what they are leashless.
I think Raptors, the 3 camp is about 3 minutes 15 without a leash. I don't really pay much attention to that sort of thing. I just kind of go with how it goes. But I tend
Yeah,
to try
that's
and
about
look to about 3 minutes 10 when I get a leash or something.
Are you
You
talking
can
about
get it a
3
bit
camps or
quicker.
5 camps?
3 camps. So yeah, Raptors, red, blue.
That okay. I need to go and get into this because when I was messing around with KhaZix clears, and for a 5 camp clear, Raptors red, Wolves blue, Grump. I saw people were getting it down to like 310. So I don't know how the speed is different, but I think that jungle speed is really important for your first clear, so that you can get like a general idea of when you can be active on the map.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm trying to get an idea of these 4 or 5 different clears that you can do. How fast should they be? I don't know how fast they should be, I guess.
Yeah. I guess something I should mention is I run a fair bit of lethality on my page. So my clear is
Gonna
probably
naturally be
about
slower.
10 seconds slower. Yeah.
Right.
So you could probably get it to like 2 minutes 50 or something. Maybe even quicker if you get a good leash.
Okay, that's what I wanted to make sure, because I know all these clears are going to have different speeds, which are important for determining what you can do on the map.
Yeah, and with that said as well, I'd probably, for your runes, I'd just say go flood AD for the most part if you're new to Kha'Zix, because it just like lets you to have that early game power and better clears and all that, which is really important, especially when you're learning the champion.
All right, cool. Any other comments on the clearing?
I think when it comes to your runes, I think it's viable to run some lethality instead of AD in your marks. If, for example, the enemy jungler, if you're not interested on like invading them, or if their pre-level 6 is pretty weak and they're not really going to gank anywhere, you don't have to counter gank them. And if the lanes are just farm lanes and there isn't much to do other than farm. So in that case, lethality holds more value over AD, because with the extra AD, you're just getting a faster clear.
Yep.
So everyone's got their thoughts out on jungle pathing?
Yeah, seems
Yeah.
so. Is the next question you want to talk about?
Okay. So just a friendly reminder to everyone that is joining that everyone here is muted by default, and to get unmuted, you have to ask a question. And once we get to your question, we'll unmute you, and you can ask it and go more into detail about it.
Also, if you would like to elaborate on someone else's question that you feel knowledgeable about, you can ask to be unmuted. That is all.
All right. So next question is, when getting ahead on KhaZix, how much focus do you place on disrupting, camping, killing the enemy jungle versus helping your lane? Does anyone want to start this one off?
I can. I think the most important thing in the early game is make sure you can generate a lead for your team, but you have to keep deep vision. I think KhaZix is really good at invading when he has vision of the jungler permanently, but you don't need like green smite for that. So I think the best time to just sit on the enemy jungler and just make him like want to quit the game is after you finish Deathblade as your second item, because your invades are like way stronger. You'll kill them like extremely fast, even when they have like pushing lanes. Like their lanes are pushing towards you, you can still get a free kill every time, even though it's like later in the game where you're actually like going for the invade instead of clearing.
Yeah, KhaZix is pretty safe at invading, but so the question, when to disrupt killing the enemy jungle or helping your lanes, I think it's more of like a situational thing, right? Like you can't go into the mindset like, well, I'm just gonna gank top lane at 6 minutes. You can't like do that, because where the lane is positioned, what champions are there, like how the match was playing out, how ahead / behind everyone is. You can't just like go with an open mind expecting to kill top lane no matter what at 6 minutes. Like you can't plan that out. You have to look at the map and realize what the situation is, if you can kill them or not. So the question, like, I feel like it's more of situational, when to invade or when to go for helping your laner. I'm guessing helping your laners only means ganks. I don't know what else you mean, like, what else to help your laners with? I guess you could get towers.
Probably vision control and helping shoving out waves when someone needs to reset. That's what my guess would be.
Yeah. But I mean, getting vision control, I'd put that more of. I guess you could ward their lane for them, but I would rather have deep vision in the jungle because better players know how to use that more than having wards in their lane. You know?
I agree. I think it's just better for low elo players because they don't use the low elo players don't look in the enemy jungle. They just AFK look at their screen. So I think lane wards are good for low elo players who like to get to their teammates because their teammates are bad because they're in a bad elo. But
Yeah. So Racco, did you want to go more into detail about your question, or?
Yeah, if you want to elaborate on that.
Yeah, I was just looking at it from like if you're ahead as KhaZix, so like you're kind of like a dominant force on the map, and you have like multiple opportunities. So you have multiple lanes that are gankable, or you can just continue to like crush the enemy jungle. What you guys feel would be more beneficial? And I understand it's completely situational, but I found myself before when I have a big lead, I'm like, all right, I can go sit on the jungle and literally kill him every time he comes back into lane, or focus on getting my laners ahead.
Personally, I think that it's best to force objectives when you're far ahead because basically, I'll give you a situation. Let's say mid turret's at like half. You can just go mid. I don't care if you kill the jungler. If you kill the mid laner, you can go mid, force him out of lane, and then the enemy jungler has two options. They have to drop everything, come mid, and stop you from pushing the turret down, or you get a free turret. If you're that far ahead, you can just walk to a lane and force an objective. You can walk to dragon and force dragon. You can take it at level 6 in like 30 seconds or less. So you can just force an objective really, really easily to the point that even if it might not seem like you're going to get anything out of it, you can just force it and you can end up getting something out of it in almost every situation. So you can put pressure on the enemy jungler by just forcing the objectives. That's how I feel you should be playing it out when you're ahead.
So Sorry.
I think a lot of players are scared of just walking into lanes and trying to get something out of it. Like, if they're not entirely sure that they're going to get something out of it, they won't do it at all. And I think when you're ahead, you need to take more risks when it comes to those objectives. So, yeah, like Mark said, you can just walk into lanes when you're ahead and pressure the tower. And eventually, maybe if you go bot lane, your ADC can take it down. Or you can just double team the enemy laner because you're so ahead and you do heaps of damage. So, yeah, you need to take a lot of risks when you're ahead because you're an assassin. I mean, assassins naturally have a risky playstyle.
Yeah. Snowball hard.
Risk. Oh, sorry.
No, you
I guess... compare like assassins to champions like Elise. Elise can do that very easily because she's got her repel. She's got CC. She can like become untargetable under towers, but KhaZix doesn't have that. And it doesn't mean that he can't do it. It just means you need to kind of play it a bit safer.
Yeah, and I think something else to consider is like what kind of lanes do you have? Like if you've got like I don't know, Janna, Ezreal bot lane, like they can just like kind of sit back and farm. But if you tried to gank for them, they don't provide that much. Whereas if you have Lucian and Braum bot, like you can just shit on people. So you could like really easily camp bot and then just get heaps of kills or just create a lot of pressure with your teammates that way. And with that also said, like the enemy jungle, like if they've got well, I guess it doesn't really matter. Like, what am I trying to say? Like, if you want to try and camp the enemy jungler, I don't know. Like, if the enemy is like a Lee Sin or if they're a Sejuani, if you're going to shut them down, you're going to shut them down, really, I suppose. But I guess it's if they are a Lee Sin or an Elise and you can like really screw with them, it's probably a bit better in the long term because those champions are early game and their mid to late games kind of falls off. Whereas if you camp the shit out of a Sejuani or something, and even if you kill her like 4 times and like take like 6 of her camps, yeah, she is going to be behind for a while, but if you don't close out that game, she's going to still become that team fighting threat later on and just be a front line just by simply existing. So that's something to consider as well, I think.
Yeah, but I think having successful lanes is way more important than destroying the enemy jungler.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. How I kind of play the game and what always keeps me going and keeps me winning whenever I'm like losing, whenever I'm finding myself on loss streaks or whenever I'm failing, I always think to myself, so when I'm in game, I need to think about what objective is best for me to be pushing for right now. Like I look at every objective: Rift Herald's up, Dragon's up, Tower's up. What should I push for? Do we have First Blood Tower? If we don't, then I need to push for that. I need to find how I need to get that First Blood Tower so we can get a lead. So then after you figure out which objective is best that you want to push for, you start asking yourself, how do I get there? So you look for ganks, you look for invades to control side of the map by getting wards or killing the enemy jungle. And then as soon as that happens, you can like rotate and collapse and fight a 3v2 under tower or something like that. You just need to always be looking out for what objective you need to take next and what you have to do to get that objective. That's what I do most of the time. So, any other thoughts on the topic of when to gank or keep invading? Does anyone have more thoughts or what?
Yeah, I wanted to kind of give my thoughts on whether counter jungling or spam ganking is better. I was gonna say I think it's equally as important to counter jungle and set the enemy jungler behind as much as possible, and just make him feel generally useless. It's harder to manage with catch-up XP, but it's still possible if you have a big enough lead early game. And one of the easier ways to win a game on KhaZix or extend a lead on KhaZix is by stomping the enemy jungler, whether it's walking into their jungle and stealing camps or deep warding to know where they are and tracking them. You want the enemy jungler to feel the most pressured, I think, is the easiest way to get leads. Make them pressured to feel, or make them feel pressured just by walking into their own jungle.
Yeah, my opinion on that is, so like whichever objective is up is whichever objective more important that's up right now. Like at the end of the day, in my opinion, I think it's super situational to like go for an invade or go for an objective. So if you don't have First Blood Tower, you don't have a Dragon and Dragon's up. If you don't have Rift Herald and Rift Herald's up, I would prioritize that way more than like looking for an invade. If I have nothing else to do and I have a lead, then I will look for an invade and probably look for camps and get deep vision. But like at the end of the day, I think it's super situational, and you just need to start playing the game. You need to play the game so much that if you really want to learn when it's better, when it's better to invade or when it's better to help laners.
I do just want to reiterate before we move on that if you pressure objectives, a lot of times that'll prevent the enemy jungler from farming just as much because they have to respond to your pressure on the objective. They can't just ignore the turret, they can't just ignore the dragon unless they want to give you. So they have to either decide between, do I catch up or do I contest this objective? They have to choose between those two. And so I just want to reiterate that that's one thing that you can force him to make that decision, which is a really hard decision to make.
Yeah, and that's also another point that KhaZix is so strong right now, in my opinion, is that if you're doing Drake, you have so much pressure on the map. So either they have to contest you, and 90% of the time you don't want to contest a KhaZix at Dragon. If you save your cooldowns as KhaZix, you're 90% like going to win that fight, because it's not only is it during KhaZix's biggest power spike, but everyone's going to be isolated, and he has the pressure. He's forcing you to fight him. So that's why KhaZix is super strong. And if they don't, then you just get a free dragon and you can rotate off of it, get like Rift Herald or a tower or something like that. Like 90% of the dragons are going to be useful. Like Ocean Drake's really strong in KhaZix. Mountain Drake really strong in KhaZix. Feral Drake really strong in KhaZix. Claw Drake's whatever. I'm not a big fan of Claw Drake, but yeah, KhaZix is super strong in those scenarios, so it's really abusable. Anything else?
All right, next up.
Racco, did we answer your question? Okay. Sweet. What were you saying, Mark?
No, I unmuted him if you had anything else to say.
No, that's it. Thanks a lot, guys. It was really helpful.
Yeah, no problem. All right, so next question. What other champions are similar to KhaZix that I should add to my champion?
Who asked that?
I don't have them. Y'all, can you find it?
Yeah, that was a spot. Okay.
All right, so I mean, we kind of have to start this off. Like, what are we asking? Bruiser KhaZix, Assassin KhaZix? Like, what kind of play style are we talking? Assassin, so like one shot, get in, get out. I think there's a few champs like that. Like, I would say Talon, Zed, Rengar, like the obvious one.
Blue Cane.
Blue Cane, full AD Nocturne. He doesn't really get out though. He just goes in, and he never comes out. Whereas the other champs have outs.
If you like the whole counter jungling sort of style and the assassination thing, I think Nidalee it can be pretty good as well.
Yeah, but I wouldn't play Nidalee because that's scum.
Yeah, true.
Rip Mark. Rip Mark.
I think that is like a pretty different playstyle to KhaZix. Is like, I mean, you've got to like land these spears and all that sort of thing, and you've got traps and stuff, but it sort of does the same thing in the sense like having that really strong early game assassination potential sort of thing.
Shaco, Rek'Sai.
I had the most fun playing Zed. I even play Zed jungle just because it's really similar to playing KhaZix. It's a lot of fun.
Lows and all damage, no.
So if you're a troll, I'd add that one. If you actually like just want to win, I'd play Rengar. I think Rengar's really fun.
Elise is also a really good, like, early pressure jungler.
Yeah, Lisa's kind of similar. I think they're looking for like a glass cannon assassin though.
Rengar.
I mean, you can build at least glass cannon assassin. It can work pretty well in solo queue. It doesn't scale as well as KhaZix will into the late game, but it can still work.
Yeah, I think blue assassin Kane's probably the closest because not only is it a jungler, but like it's more of those windows that KhaZix kind of has.
Yeah, and you have similar escape patterns as KhaZix with your E through the wall to get out.
Is there a champ I'm missing?
Akali and Katarina for lanes, I suppose, for like an AP alternative.
Yeah.
Because they they're obviously assassins. They've got a reset in their kit sort of thing. Like,
Yeah.
Can't go too wrong with them. And Fizz.
Yeah, Fizz is kind of similar.
I think if you're just talking strictly junglers, though, otherwise you could just pretty much list everyone in the assassin category, and you could get something similar to KhaZix with their patterns. Exactly. But if you want to talk strictly jungle, Blue Cane, Elise, kind of Nidalee, I think are your three main options.
Rengar.
Oh yeah, Rengar. Is Rengar. I think those are your four main options.
Rek'Sai.
But I wouldn't put Rek'Sai as like...
Rek'Sai sounds like a fighter.
Yeah, Rek'Sai is more of like a bruiser than an assassin. And
have you seen Rek'Sai's damage, man?
Yeah,
that shit is insane.
Don't want to underestimate the Rek'Sai damage.
Well, yeah, but I mean, like all the bruisers, like you can say the same with like the Jax or Irelia. Those are all bruiser fighters too. But they.
Yeah, but I think it's more the how League is kind of turned out is like fighters kind of do the same amount of damage as assassins nowadays.
I think, after Rammus gets Thornmail, I consider him an assassin.
Yeah, I agree. See, like I think that's just what Season 7 is. Like you could pretty much like consider most people assassins because of their burst. Like when fucking Rammus gets Cinderhulk or Thornmail, like he's an assassin.
Yeah.
If you like bursting the shit out of people, Graves is pretty good as well.
Oh yeah, Graves is good. For one burst.
I fucking
he's
hate
kind
that
of out of the meta right now because of the whole tank thing, but yeah, when he's in the meta, I fucking hate him.
Yeah, Kayn, by the way, is like a really good counter for the meta right now. Red form Kayn. I think blue form is kind of garbage.
Ooh, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
Red form's broken and it counters tank meta right now because this Q just shreds fucker. That shit does 30% max HP plus 260 base AD, 3-second cooldown. That shit's insane.
Thank you, Nutty.
Sorry, I have the numbers memorized right now. So unlucky, dude.
Yeah. And
what else? Is that it?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's as far as similar playstyles.
Yeah.
Yeah, and with because there's a few people that like Bruiser, KhaZix, Nightly Creed. But if you do like that playstyle, Kayn and Rek'Sai are probably your best friends. And you
basically just go under the fighter or bruiser fucking thing and just look at all those. Like pretty much all fighters and bruisers play the same. So if you're more into like a Bruiser KhaZix playstyle, there's a lot of champions. Darius, Rek'Sai, Kane, like there's a lot of those fighters, Aurelia, like stuff like that. You can find that. But if you want an assassin, like there's a few assassins right now. It feels bad, man. Anyways, so good on that. Next question.
Yeah, I think that works for that question.
Okay. So how to close out games while ahead as KhaZix? I don't have I still don't have the people's names because these are questions from earlier and I never found them. But
What was the question?
how to close out games while ahead as KhaZix?
Oh, that was asked by Ra. My fucking shoe. I don't even understand what that name is. Yeah, he asked that. He's not in the call.
Oh, unlucky, dude.
You
Should we
can
answer it anyways, or should we
Yeah,
skip?
you should just answer it anyway.
Yeah, just answer
Okay.
it.
So I feel like we kind of went over this a bunch though. Like
Yeah.
when you're ahead as
Generally-
KhaZix.
Generally, yeah, we can just summarize.
All right. So
quickly.
when
Like,
who wants to go? I'll fucking.
he's here.
All right. So basically, when you're ahead as KhaZix, you want to push any objective you can. Drake's up. That's like the main priority, unless it's like Cloud Drake. You want to get Drakes as soon as possible. Level 6 plus, you can soul them as Kha'Zix. Full HP, full fucking mana, pretty much. I mean, not full mana, obviously, but like, if anyone contests you, you fight them. Like, it's really easy for Kha'Zix to take Drakes. So that's a really good way to push your lead. Or even without a lead, Kha'Zix solos Drake really well. You can soul a Rift Herald as soon as it spawns, full HP. Just remember to dodge his swipe and keep hitting the eye. You have to sacrifice autos to hit the eye. It's efficient, obviously, because the eye does 2k, 1k, 2k. So soloing Rift Herald is super important. You can solo that when it spawns. Pushing towers as soon as you get a kill in a lane. So what I do in game is if I ever kill someone on the enemy team, I instantly ask myself, what can I get off this? Can I get a tower? If I can't, can I get a Drake? If I can't, can I get a Rift Herald? If I can't, can I get his camps? If I can't get his camps, I just place wards and I dip set and I look for the next thing that I can do. It's sort of a checklist, right? Like you have to know what you can take after you get a lead somewhere. What most people will screw up on in low elo is as soon as they get a kill, they just recall or they just go back to farming their camps. Like they don't look at what they can get after getting a kill.
I think
So-
the only
Yeah.
limiting factor is what your HP is after a kill. You know, obviously, if you're at 100 HP after the 1v1 back, you know what I mean? Maybe get a word down and then back, but that's just.
Also, when the enemy jungler, they're dead, it's pretty much an invitation to go walk in their jungle and see what camps are up. Warded.
Yeah, you take camps. Warding in the enemy jungle is so strong.
Yeah.
So important. I can't emphasize that enough. If you get a ward down in the enemy jungle, for the next 3 minutes, you know exactly where they are on the map. They're either recalled on the opposite side or they're on the ward. Like, it's super important. No one should die to a gank when you have a single ward in the enemy jungle, if you know where to ward. And it's super important. It just controls the entire game. Is there anything else we could discuss, like pushing leads, Kha'Zix ahead? You really go for objectives. I don't know what else you could.
Yeah, no, it's just.
I guess you could
Look for
say,
picks.
like, I guess you could say like, how do you close out games that are like 40 minutes long and everyone's like almost full build sort of thing? Even though,
Yeah, I
like,
think we-
if you effectively do like what Nani just said, like you probably ended the game at about 25 minutes or something if all goes well. But sometimes, I don't know, you might just make a miscalculation and then fuck up pretty badly, and then they get a Baron or something, and then they're back in the game, or you've got boosted teammates or whatever it is. Sometimes you just get those long games, and a lot of people struggle to know what to do 40 minutes in as KhaZix because it's that sort of team fight phase, and you can't really easily get on their back line in a lot of circumstances.
Yeah. So,
Was that talked about last time?
I think so. I was going to say, I think we talked.
Oh, okay. That's all right then.
Should I summarize on what we talked about last time, or like, are we
No,
good?
Don't worry about summarizing it.
That should be okay.
Okay. So, we good there,
Wait,
everyone?
Virtue bot.
Oh, sorry. Is my mic still fucking up? My bad.
Yes, it's still really
I
low.
turned you up, though. I can hear you. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, should we elaborate more on like maybe how to go for picks, for example? Like, what's the mindset? What's the process? Because I'm sure there are certain things you can look for, different strategies, things like that. Like maybe keys that you can look for on the mini map. maybe.
I think the number one thing when you're thinking about getting picks is what vision do you have? Because I see an ADC alone at Raptors, but I have no vision of anywhere else in their jungle. For all I know, their Braum and their Syndra are right behind them, sitting in that bush waiting for someone to, you know what I mean? So the number one thing that you need to think about when you're looking for picks is what vision do I have? And you need to play around that vision. You can't just see an ADC and jump on them.
Yeah, you have to keep track of their entire team. Like, you have to keep asking yourself, if I jump here, are they going to show up out of nowhere and I'm going to die? Like, you have to always keep track of their entire team, because if you miscalculate one person and you leap on the vein and they come out of a bush and now it's 2v1, like freeze frame, record scratch, this is me, nutty, and you're probably asking how I got here. That's what happened. So it's super important to keep track of their entire team. And once you put in enough games, you really start learning when people like start splitting by themselves and like when you can punish mistakes. So if there's a Baron fight about to happen, like you know that they're going to probably contest the Baron, and you probably look for a pick as they're walking to it if they have no vision.
I will say one other thing about picks is people are predictable, and you can use that to your advantage. If you see the red buff spawning in 20 seconds, and you have relatively good vision in their jungle, or you have your sweeper active and you know how they haven't seen you, you can probably chill in that red buff bush and get a kill on their ADC, because at 35 minutes into the game, they're not going to need their support and their mid laner to help them take out that red buff. They don't need that, so they're going to go do it themselves. So, or if you have a giant bot lane wave that's pushing, you have like 3 minion waves that are pushing into their tier 2 turret, someone's going to go ahead, one of their carries are going to go respond and take that farm. So you can use that to your advantage and just be like, if I go follow this, someone's likely going to show up. And as long as you know that you're not seen, that's probably the best way that you get picks late game, is abusing people's predictability and greed, that kind of thing.
Yep,
Perfect.
It's very easy to force the enemy to behave in a certain way. So, like, the thing with minion waves is no one's going to pass up, like, a huge minion wave. So they're very easy to bait, like, squishy carries and all that.
All right, so are we good on that question? Virtue, you got anything else, or?
I was going to say, too, you can actually, just to elaborate a little bit more on the waves, you can create a wave like that ahead of time, right? That's going to pile up and bait someone into, going for that wave.
Yeah.
Walk up to a minion wave, kill the ranged minions, and walk away. That lane will push to their tier 2 turret in about a minute and a half. And it will be about 3 waves that push to their tier 2. If you take an even wave and you kill only the ranged minions and you walk away, that lane will take about a minute and a half, but it'll be at their tier 2 turret with 2 or 3 plus waves.
You're creating a slow push.
Yes, and that is the easiest way to do it. You just kill the ranged minions and walk away, and it will push, and you will have an opportunity to kill them. That's the simplest way to do it.
Oh yeah. So if you want to get really fancy, you can also time that up with the Baron or Dragon spawn, I suppose.
Yep.
If anyone wants to elaborate, just type in the chat and you'll be unmuted on how to extend your leads into wins and how to go for picks.
I think we're good on that, huh?
Probably.
Seems so. I don't see anyone typing.
So next question? Yeah? Next question?
Yeah, that works.
Okay. So next question is, if the enemy team is all up in your jungle early game, how do you handle it? How do you deal with it? So,
Who would
probably
like to
in a
kick that
scenario that you're probably like, let's say level 3, or do you guys want to go later than that? Like, so level 3, it's up to you guys. Like, what scenario do you guys want to? If it's like level 3 and you're at your red and a Shaco invades you, and the enemy team is collapsing, basically what should happen is you ping it, and your team should rotate, and Shaco shouldn't have an escape because he's in your side of the map. Like, if your team collapses fast enough, they're closer to you than the enemy team is, so you're able, especially that early in the game, 3 people should be able to delete someone from the game really quickly. So if you collapse on the Shaco soon enough, he should be able to get punished for his invade and die. If we're talking like late game, when the entire team is in your jungle, you either have to rely on your team to rotate, but you also have to know if you win the skirmish. So you have to check like who's ahead. If the enemy jungler is 4-0 and you're 0-0-0, and he's invading you, like you're probably not going to win that fight. So you just want to avoid him as a whole and go on the opposite side of the map and take his camp. Is that clear? Or?
So you also have to look at like the wave positions too, right? Because like there's a chance, like given the wave position and the terrain, that your laners or their laners won't have any chance to rotate. So you can also factor that in.
Yeah, exactly.
if you're getting invaded on your top side jungle and your top laner has 2 waves pushing into their turret, you can't reasonably expect that they're going to be able to respond, even though they're on your side of the map, because they have to deal with that too. You know that if they come and help you, they're losing a lot of experience. That's the most important thing. They're losing a lot of experience for coming to help you. So you can't reasonably expect them. So if you get invaded by their top in their jungle, and their top is busy with 2 waves in the turret, well, then they had a good invade. You know what I mean? That's so you have to play around that.
Yeah, you have to make sure who wins the skirmish. You have to make sure who's going to get there first. You have to make sure you're in a safe spot, because if you get picked off too early before your team arrives, if they are coming, then that's on you for messing up. There's a lot of things that go into it. It's another one of those things where it's like a checklist. You have to make sure who's able to win the fight. Does anyone else want to elaborate on that?
I can. I think it's really important if you're against a jungler that can invade you, you take a lot less greedy routes and a lot more routes that are more efficient for you to help your team. Because if the jungler he does 3 camps, ganks bottom, gets a double kill, he's really far ahead of you. So you have to be really patient, and you have to buy pink wards, and you can place them like over your red buff or in the dot bushes and river to make sure that you can see them invading so your teammates can collapse.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, if you're too low HP and they invade, then you just have to give it up. Like, there's no reason to try and contest it when you're 200 HP. You're just gonna die.
Also, I want to make that important thing clear. If you're getting invaded and you're low HP and they're not low HP, give your camp up. Don't try even if it's your buff, even if it's your first buff, just give the camp up. Don't die along with the camp. That's something that I see way too many people, even in pro play, do. Like, you'll see pro junglers even do it all the time. They'll be like, I don't want this red buff, and then they'll go die alongside the red buff for no reason.
Yep.
That's the number one thing. Know whether or not you can actually contest. If you can't, don't do it.
It's also almost always an option to just mirror the invade, and instead of wasting time trying to go to a camp and contest when you know you can't get anything out of it, or it's a really low percentage play that you're not going to come out even or ahead, you just run straight to their jungle and just mirror the invade and take their camp on their side.
Anyone else?
Yeah.
I was quickly going to say, if you are getting consta invaded, by the enemy support and jungler, sort of at about when you're level 6 sort of thing, it's pretty hard if your team is behind. If that's happening, you're pretty fucked in a lot of times. But I find that sometimes if you just you might just have to buy a shit ton of pink wards and then just hope that they make a really arrogant play and you're able to capitalize off it. That's pretty much the most successful thing I've had, because in a lot of those times you're really getting starved of jungle and kills and stuff because you're just getting fucked from all your bushes in the jungle.
Yeah,
so
defensive wards are key.
In a solo queue environment, I find the best thing is to just pink ward up one side of your map and then just make sure you're getting the camps on that side, and then if you do see them going for some stupid cheese bullshit, you ping it, and then maybe your team might be able to collapse on them. So, if it's a Jarvan and a Blitzcrank invading you, for example, and they try and kill you at your red when it's coming up, and you see them coming in through that entrance at river, you see them coming in through Tribush or something, for example, and that's on a normal ward, and then you've got a pink ward at the red bush. You might be able to 3 or 4 man collapse on them, and then that might be able to get you back in the game. But it's pretty hard to come back in some of those situations. So
Yeah, just constantly having defensive wards and the entrances to your jungle camps are gonna help you from falling further behind. Also, coordinating with your laners if you can. If they're not just brain dead, and actually have them ward with you.
Yeah, unfortunately it's a bit team reliant in those situations, but sometimes you're just going to have to take the loss of it. I find that's the most effective strategy I've had against those in those situations. But yeah, that's all I really have to say on it.
So, does anyone else want to elaborate on dealing with the enemy team in your jungle? Alright, sounds like we're good on that.
Maybe.
What do you mean, maybe? Dude?
Some people are like still typing. You know, gotta give them a minute.
Typing about the next question, bro.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah, get up to date, bro.
Yeah, we can
okay.
move on.
So next question is, when is it okay to split push? Who wants to start this off?
I know we talked a little bit about this in our last seminars. It wasn't its own topic though, so if you do end up watching that, you will hear a little bit of information about it. But split pushing, because KhaZix is a bad team fighter, split pushing is pretty much always a viable option on him, as long as you're obviously not doing something dumb, like split pushing bot while Baron's up kind of thing. As long as you're being smart about it and you can deal with the people that they send to you, and you have vision in their jungle, and so you're not just going to get collapsed on and killed, you can split push. You can take turrets down really fast. You can clear waves really fast, especially with W evolve mid to late game. So I think it's always going to be a viable option, so long as you're not losing other objectives in return for that. You can usually 1v1 pretty much anyone for most of the game, so it's definitely a viable option, in my opinion.
When it comes to split pushing, a lot of low elo players have very, very poor map awareness when it comes to splitting, because that's the number one thing you need to look at when you're splitting. You don't need to focus on the lane itself. You can just wave clear, and you should be able to focus on the map, obviously, as your primary thing, because if they send multiple people to you, that's your goal. Like, you want to distract more than one person, so your team has options for themselves. So you're basically forcing an objective, and you're making the enemy team take a choice of their own. And you always want your team, obviously, to come out on top. So, for example, if you're splitting top and there's a team fight around mid, you want your team to either win the fight by sending 2 people to you, or you want to just get the free objective. So no matter what, you have to make sure that you're getting something out of it. If you're just splitting for no reason, then that's not going to work at all, and you're going to put your team behind. So always be aware of the map and where each team is.
Yep, I agree 100% on
Solid.
that.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
Tingis or Virtue or Crash.
So yeah, split pushing is very efficient, actually. You draw people to your location, and from that your team can hopefully, if they're not brain dead, get a bit stronger while you're doing this. It's also efficient in the sense that you are picking up minion waves as well. So you're getting solo experience, you're getting gold, you're getting all these things, and you could potentially get kills if you play it right. So yeah, split pushing is always a viable option, but its success depends on what you actually want to achieve with the split pushing. So if you're just split pushing to, say, like, get yourself ahead in gold and shit, and not like push an objective or whatever, then it's probably better to stick with your team and make things happen with them.
Oh, hi, Demir's here.
I think one thing that's worth adding, I was gonna say though, you have to consider like not just your ability to 1v1 everyone on the enemy team, but also like, because they might not even have to 1v1 you. Like, some champions can just sit under turret and wave clear, so you want to be careful that you're not in a situation where they can just send one person, and even though they can't kill you, they can sit there be safe under turret and kill the wave. So you just have to make sure that, in addition to being able to 1v1 everyone, that you're actually going to be able to pressure the turret 1v1 against whoever they send.
Yep.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Should I be grouping up or splitting?
Wait. Did Demir have anything on split pushing? When you think it's a good idea to split push?
SSDD capital.
Okay.
I like that in-depth answer.
Yeah, that was a little too advanced for us.
So, I think this, should I be grouping up or splitting in mid-game, for example? It's like for an example of the split question.
It's entirely dependent on the state of the game and both comps.
That's just very situational.
Any more? Anyone else to elaborate on this question?
What question?
What you feel about split pushing on KhaZix? Like when to do it, get out of it. I don't know, just general stuff.
I think we can elaborate a little bit more on the situations, right?
Well, there's a bunch of different situations. Kind of the thing is like
a few key ones. For example, if you can't win 5v5, that's going to be a big sign, right?
Yeah. So you kind of have to it's back to the checklist, right? So first you got to check if you win team fights. If you don't win team fights, then you need to look to apply pressure elsewhere. If you don't win 1v1, or if you don't have anyone on your team that wins 1v1, to say what's a good example for a top laner that they would have? If they have an ahead Jax and he's top lane, just AFK farming, and he's 6-0, then obviously no one on your team can probably 1v1 him, or an ahead Fiora, etc. So you want to look for either a 1-3-1, or you want to look to force a fight on their 4-man group. So in splitting situations, it's always best to take out their bigger group instead of it's kind of situational, because if their split pusher is at your inhib or your inhib tower, it's more important to take care of the split pusher unless there's Baron up. There's so many situations that really varies, right? So if they're looking to push tier 2 towers, you want to take out their bigger group. So their 4-man, you want to force a fight on their 4-man, and you can get more out of it. Once you kill their 4-man group, then you can get Baron or look for another push,
I think your decisions also depend on factors like whether the split pusher has teleport. Because if they don't have teleport, then you can easily force the 4-man fight. But if they do have teleport, well, that means the exact same. It's going to be a 5-man fight in 4.5 seconds.
Well, you can still, it takes TP takes way too long. So if you have a good team comp to force a fight on their 4-man, it's super important. So one Leona ult, you instantly win pretty much the 5v4. You can blow fights up really easily with a number advantage. Once again, split pushing, it's super, super situational. There's a lot of different situations. Depending on where at on the map, what time in the game, how fed people are, it's super, 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 super situational, and you just need to learn over time all the situation.
Yep.
So it's kind of hard. It's really hard to go in depth with every situation because there's just so many.
I think that was sufficient in my opinion.
Yeah, the game's just pretty dynamic.
Yeah.
Hard to generalize everything.
So
This one's a really quick question. Red or blue smite, by the way.
Well, we can write that down and get to it.
Yeah, so just make sure you can.
Because I have really good thoughts on that.
Yeah.
I answer that so often when we get to it.
Well, that's the next question. If we feel like we're finished on split pushing.
I think Bot said he had one question. Did you see that one? Nutty?
Where at?
In Kha'Zix, he asked it a while ago, but I don't know that we ever covered it.
I didn't see it. What was it?
Yeah.
What was that?
As the game progresses, what should he prioritize? When I know that the enemy jungler has a strong late game comp.
What do you mean by that? What you should prioritize in objectives?
I assume so.
I think you need to establish an early lead for yourself. Since you're saying it's a late game comp, that's assuming that the enemy team has a pretty bad early game. Putting yourself ahead and maintaining your own lead and then spreading that advantage to the rest of your team, transitioning that into map control is always good. Because if you have map control on a late game comp, it's a lot harder for them to scale and like get dragons or go to Baron. So if you're able to give your team that big advantage of just having the whole map, including the enemy jungle, which you should, because late game comps have really bad early games and KhaZix is pretty good early. There's nothing wrong with his early game. You just have to, play the early game very smart and make sure that you gain an advantage. If you go even against a late game comp, that's really not good.
Anyone else? Tinges? Mark?
No, I think as long as you're properly forcing objectives and abusing the fact that they're bad in the early game, you can make a lot of stuff happen. Your priority, okay, so basically your priority against like game comp should be the same as your priority when you're ahead, because technically you are ahead. You're an early game champion, right? So your priority should still remain the same. You should act as though you're ahead because you're going to be stronger than them, because that Vayne hasn't scaled yet, that Cassiopeia hasn't scaled yet, whatever you want, so something like that. You want to force something when you know they haven't reached that item spike yet, that level spike yet. That's when you should still be trying to force stuff as if you were ahead, in my opinion.
Yeah, so you really want to get as much as you can done in the early game when you're against late game comps. Like, you don't want to give them a single chance to scale. You want to apply so much pressure that they won't even have the chance to get to late game. Say you're against the Nasus or something, you don't want to let him stack and just sit in a lane for 10 minutes and then he gets 1,000 stacks and one-shots you. You want to constantly be doing things with your team. You want to get out of laning phase early, and you want to take objectives, push towers, etc.
Anyone else?
I think, like I said earlier, it's really important that if you're against a tank jungler that's going to provide Cinderhulk and Knight's Vow and just be 10 times more useful late game, that you need to invade them as much as possible, like doing the 3 camp clear into invading their second buff. It's really important. That allows you to create such a huge advantage that you wouldn't be able to create if you didn't cheese them. So if you're struggling that hard, you need to look for invade plays.
Crash actually wanted to add to that.
Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of people, they're just spending their time like not looking for opportunities across the map, but like with each choice you make, like there's consequences. And so if you're gonna gain bot lane, right, and most of the time your bot lane is probably like 0 and 25 5 minutes, but the off chance that they're actually successful in like the first 5 to 10 minutes, then you pretty much just won the game off that one lane. And if the comp is too tank heavy, then you really want to focus on objectives that are around the map and not focusing so much on taking out the tanks in the early game.
Okay, solid.
So, Light? What do you
Me?
have to say? Yeah, what do you have to say, bro?
I don't really. I think you guys covered it pretty well.
All right. So, next question. Red or blue smite on KhaZix?
Ooh,
Blue.
I like this one. I could lead this one.
I think red smite is good for a beginner KhaZix, in my opinion, but blue is
Also
definitely better.
Also for bruiser KhaZix, red is probably going to be better in general if you play that garbage.
Yeah.
But generally, blue smite. I mean, in my opinion, I think blue smite's just generally better overall for assassin or glass cannon lethality KhaZix, because it just synergizes so much better with your kit. I think with having more upfront burst damage, it's going to take an extra auto or an extra Q to match the instant damage if you had red smited them. So also, since your W got reworked, you don't have a slow anymore with your W besides your passive, so it's even more essential to your early game, because you want to put every single tool into your early game, into snowballing for early. That's when KhaZix is gonna be most impactful and have the most leads.
Mhm.
So I just think it's generally so much better. Gives you better everything for early game.
Yeah, I definitely think Blue Smite is a lot stronger on KhaZix. Even for Bruiser, I mean, you can do a lot with the move speed you get from Chilling Smite. A lot of people buy Red Smite to avoid burst and stuff like that, but what you can do with the move speed is you can just dodge, important skill shots in general.
Mm-hmm.
You don't always have to, you don't have to just take the hit and oh wow, I'll get reduced damage because I have Red Smite. You can just dodge the whole skill shot in general if you're good enough.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So the move speed really helps with that, and of course you get the burst.
Call me Blue Waffle because I like my Blue Smite.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah, but I'm pretty much in there. Yeah, I agree with everything else that's been said. Basically, yeah, Blue Smite most of the time. Sometimes you can go Red Smite if you're versing a pretty tough opponent or whatever, and they've got a slight lead on you. But apart from that, yeah, mainly Blue Smite.
I do want to ask you guys: is there ever a situation in which you'd go Smite Stone?
Wait, what?
Wait, what?
Green Smite.
Like green Smite?
No.
In competitive play, you would.
Yeah, if you're
We're not playing competitively, so.
LCS, sure. Yeah.
I mean, vision is always useful, but at the end of the day, you've got trinkets, you've got pink wards. You don't really
And
need.
You need
extra
teammates
wards.
to actually have awareness to utilize the words.
Yeah,
I have
unlucky.
I have actually played a couple of games where I've snowballed really well before I've even had the chance to upgrade my smite for whatever reason. And sometimes I'll actually go green smite because I'm like, all right, well, I'm at the point where blue smite isn't going to matter that much. I might as well get some free wards out of it. And yeah, it's quite helpful because then you can so easily just get like so much vision of the enemy jungle. And yeah, you don't have to worry about your little trinket or whatever, and you can have a sweeper at the same time or whatever. It's pretty good, but yeah, I generally wouldn't really worry about that. That's a pretty niche sort of circumstance, and I mean, if you did get that massive lead, like going blue smite's still fine, and it just helps your lead, snowball even harder anyway. So
When do I build Feral Flare?
Feral Flare.
Love that item.
when you want to get to
I
round
miss
five.
that item, dude. Even though it was fucking ape shit broken. I
What
miss
about
Build that
Wriggles?
as soon as you step into your time machine. Once you do that, you just set it back a couple years, and then about like 10, 15 minutes in, you got it. No problem.
Elder Lizard, bro. That was my favorite item in the game. I loved that item. Alright, this is a little off topic, but don't you guys remember when all the jungle items were good? Fucking Elder Wraith, Elder Lizard, Elder Golem, and then there was Devourer. Do you guys remember that? I loved those.
Oh yeah, dude.
That was an
Feral Flare.
interesting time.
When Devour stacked.
That was a good time.
Yeah, I loved that meta, dude. It was my favorite meta, man. Alright, anyways. So are we good on the red or blue smite? I think we're good. I think we covered it. So blue smite generally. Red smite if you're a tank. Yeah, well, Daniel, you can do it. I don't know. Fuck it.
Ooh, hell yeah. Just
Yeah,
send me your list then.
You do
'Cause
you,
there's-
bro.
There's a lot of questions that are
Well, I
piling up.
mean, you have the questions that you sent me are what
Okay.
I had left on my list. And
Okay.
that one's pretty quick. If you want to do that one that I just sent.
Oh, okay. What times could you be looking for Elder / Baron Steel, and when is it or when is it not worth the attempt? So, which one of you guys would like to touch on that first?
I think I'll go.
Yeah, Crash.
Alright, so looking for steel like whenever you have the chance, but I think most of the time, like if you don't have like vision, then what's the point, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Then if you don't have vision, like just you can go for it, but then it's not gonna be as great because if you let's say you get it right by the off chance you get it without vision, and that's really great. But if you had vision in the first place, then you could have your team in position, and then you'd be able to get the objective easier.
Mm-hmm.
Personally, I
I
think
think
if you're
it's
ever
all-
in a position to steal an objective, with the way KhaZix's Q Smite burst works, you should almost always take the opportunity to, because outside of, a Cho'Gath or a Nunu, you can outsmite pretty much any jungler in the game on Baron. More so if they're tanking it, because the damage will get cut in half. So if you have, obviously don't make dumb decisions, just jump in Baron Pit, blind 1v5 and, kill yourself. But if you have, and one important thing to remember is your flash up. If your flash is up, you can definitely be a lot more aggressive with making these steals. But if your flash is up and you have relatively okay vision, you can also get vision with your W evolve. But if you have that, go for it, because Kha'Zix's steals are very, very good, and you have a very high likelihood of it working out. I think for the most part, there's no reason not to take the chances, especially if you have flash up and can just get out of a bad situation.
Yep.
Is it bad
Yeah, I
to
think-
watch your bot lane die when you take dragon while you take dragon? Masquerade asked.
Let them die.
Wait, this is a separate question.
Oh, it is? I thought it was in response. Okay.
I was gonna say something about Baron as well. If that's, I was just gonna quickly say, I think the two most important, three things that I find the most important is do I have flash up? Because that's obvious reasons. Do they have it's all important to have vision of not only the Baron but also have control of the vision over the wall from where you're gonna smite from? Because if they've got a Gragas or a Blitzcrank or something, they can just fucking kill you. So it's important to know what the enemy's capable of and how they can stop you from stealing it. And the other thing is what's your position in the game? Are you really ahead or are you really behind? Because if you're really ahead and the steal's really, really risky, you don't have flash and you don't have vision or something, it's probably better just to let it go. Because if you die, the chances of getting it are really low, and if you die, well, then the game ends.
Yeah.
Whereas if you let them take Baron, you might be able to get a pick or something, or you might be able to stall enough. It depends on the game, but but if you're really behind and your whole team's up and you've got vision of the Baron, you might as well go for it. And even if you die, sometimes in those circumstances, it's probably worth going for the risk, because if you don't get the Baron, you're probably just going to lose anyway. So
I do want to make a note about that second point. If you don't have control of over the wall, if you're on red side and they can see you approach, don't be afraid. Take creative paths to get there. Walk through the tri-brush instead of walking straight there through red buff. It'll take you an extra second, but if that avoids you getting, Blitzcrank pulled into the Baron pit and instantly blown up when Baron's at 4,000 health, that's better. So don't be afraid to take the extra second, even if you're like, oh, I got to get there and see what the HP is at, that kind of thing. Take the extra second to be safe. If you think they have vision of the area, if you don't have control over it, it's better to be safe in that kind of situation. Even if they get the Baron, it was, a 30% success play anyway. So it's not like you really lost anything by being safe, in my opinion.
So, Virtue or Rob, do you guys have any different take on stealing?
Nope. Everything relevant was already said, in my opinion.
Okay.
Next question.
Yeah. Next topic. Oh, so Melon Duck had something to add. He said, to add on to my question about stealing, what health is good to jump in? He said he usually goes for 2k, 1.5k.
I think 1.5 is pretty good.
I don't think that's really a question you can ask. You should be watching their DPS. If they have a Cassiopeia, Caitlyn, that's going to be different.
Also
than if they have
factoring in Earth Dragons.
It depends on the state of the game. If it's fucking 20 minutes in, it's going to be way slower. Their DPS. If it's 40 minutes in, they're probably one-shotting Baron, and you have to be quick about it. You have to go at a higher HP.
Factors. And I think one important thing is, okay, so if you have vision of the Baron, you should be able to time it. I mean, you should be able to watch its HP, and basically, even if you lose vision, you should be able to start counting down its HP, 5k, 4k, 3k, 2k, and then by feel, you should be able to jump in there and steal it, even if you lose vision of it. So I think it's important just to, if you have a vision of Baron for a second, to watch how much damage they're doing and how fast it's going down. That should give you a sense of when you should jump in. because you want to
Yeah.
jump in, 1.5 to 2 seconds before it dies, because you need the time for you to jump in, and then your Q to go off and your smite to go off, and then kill the Baron.
I think
It's,
it's important to actually be next to Baron casting your Q when it's at 1.5k health. I think is the sort of, or around maybe 1.2k ish, maybe around that sort of thing. Depends on the as was said, it was 20 minutes in or whatever. Don't jump in at 1.5k. Be sort of on it at that time, and which as was just said, depends on what the state of the game is.
I think we should keep
that
moving
makes
forward
sense.
so we don't dwell on it too long.
Well,
On
I
this
wanna-
one question.
Yeah.
One
Say something real
last-
quick. It's
What's up?
better to go in early as KhaZix, because even if it's not at the correct HP, I mean, obviously not super early, but if you go in, it's better to go in early because as KhaZix you stall really easily with your ult. So when you leap in and you get it lower and it's not in smite range, you stealth and wait it out.
Mhm.
Wait until it's in range. So it's better to go in early as KhaZix than it is.
What were you saying, Rob?
One for sure way to
Why
know
not
if
so-
the enemy team is doing Baron, even if you don't have a ward or any vision at all, is the back side of the wall where the blast cone is, where you could go inside a Baron pit. If you lean against that wall, you'll get the Baron debuff if they're doing Baron, and you don't
Mhm.
need actual vision to know that they're doing it. So
Mhm.
just a little thing a lot
Yeah,
of
that's
people
a
don't know about.
general tip. Most people never notice. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just be careful doing that you don't get hooked into
Yeah.
Baron pit or something.
Yeah.
Alright,
Alright,
guys. Next thing was, what do you do? I had to reword this one. The English was interesting. But what do you do when your mid is bad and you go for an invade, and then the top and mid lane basically collapse on you when you're in their jungle?
And that was a bad invade.
Yeah, then I think that's just a poor invade.
Then you fucked up.
Yeah, that's your own fault.
Shouldn't be there.
If you know your mid is not doing well and your mid's behind and their mid has priority and their top mid has priority, don't do it.
I'd say it's similar to pushing up when you have vision, or when you don't have vision. It's just pushing up anyway and playing as if you did have vision, as if you're a laner, for example.
Yeah, if you're an 0-3 laner and your enemy's a 3-0 laner, you're not going to be aggressive on them, but that's basically what you're wanting to do. And
It's like you're playing with vision even though you don't have it. Yeah.
So that's a pretty simple one. That was your own fault. Don't do it.
Next topic, unless you guys have something, would be core build. We already touched on. This one is, could F keys be used to help? Let's see, could F keys prove to be useful for lane status and how to plan your pathing? So F keys is in F1, F2, F3, F4.
Yeah, to target allies.
Or your teammates, yeah.
That's what a lot of people
My
do.
personal opinion on them is they're just personal preference. When I'm clearing, I personally just look at the map. You can get a lot of information. If you're looking at the map closely, you can see when people flash just by looking at the mini map, even if you're not looking directly at them. So I don't personally use the F keys. That's just me. I know a lot of people do because I get pretty much the same information from the map. Unless I'm trying to specifically look at a wave. That's
the wave, exactly. Yeah.
That's really the only time I look at people.
Yeah, and I use F keys myself, and it's whatever. You can just use your mouse and go along the bloody map that way, or just even pan across. Yeah, it depends on your playstyle, really. I like to be able to instantly look at a lane. That's just what I like to do, but it doesn't really matter as long as you're being I suppose, on the ball about, looking at your map and stuff and having a sense of what the game's looking like. It's, F keys or no keys, it's fine.
So it's a pretty not too in-depth topic to...
Just personal preference.
Yeah, it's just preference mostly. So we can move on past that pretty quick. So next one is, how do you play versus a protect the carry composition? And how would you change your gameplay? How do you make sure they are never a group so you can use your full damage on them? Is what hunting carries asked.
I think that's when you really have to get good at picks. Like, like we were talking earlier about setting up slow pushes and using that as bait, so, going to red buff as bait when they're more than likely going to be alone. So I think it's when they have a protect the carry comp, Shen, Janna kind of bullshit. That's when you need to avoid all team fights and just go for picks and try and abuse greed and people going out alone, and then just catch them off guard. That's your only opportunity.
Yeah, that's pretty
Split
much
push
it.
and you look for picks.
And sometimes those opportunities won't really present themselves that often if the enemy team's really coordinated for some reason. Like it's not impossible, it's just a lot more difficult. If they're really stacked and it's a comp where you're never gonna get to like a Kog'Maw or something like that. It can happen if you don't do well enough early game.
And in that case, it comes down to, well, what are my options that aren't team fighting? Because, the Kog'Maw with the Shen Janna is going to melt you no matter what you do. So what are my options that don't involve team fighting? And then you get to splitting, you get to baiting out a pick, baiting out objectives, that kind of thing is more important.
You're leaving the game. Yeah, they're all solid options. Does anyone else have any closing thoughts on that? How to play versus carry,
So-
protect the carries?
Protect the carry. I'd say time management is extremely important. You can't waste any time when you're like going in on engages against a fed AD carry. So like, I'm gonna say like evolutions can be really useful here, particularly evolved W and in some cases evolved R, because they kind of support like time management playstyles. For example, particularly evolved R. Wait, hang on.
Do you mean for second evolution or?
Just in general.
Okay.
I would say, yeah. So evolved R, it lets you. Well, we all know what it does, right? It lets you come out as stealth, and basically be on top of the enemy with stealth. And then, what it does, a really underrated feature is that it doesn't give you that 2-second cooldown between your casts. So, meaning once you come out of stealth, you can use your Void Assault straight after you come out of that passive stealth. And that saves a lot of time. And what that does, it opens up a lot of opportunities for assassination. Yeah. What was I going to say? Yeah, a lot of the time, that delay between Void Assault casts will stop you from getting assassinations. So I think Evolved R can be useful there. If you're... Yeah, it kind of applies to like protect the carry comps.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting that you bring up.
Explanation.
Oh, keep going. I'm sorry.
No, I'm done.
Oh, okay. I think it's interesting that you brought up evolutions in that case, because I think Evolve W second in that case would be pretty useful, because if it's the protected carry comp and they have something like Janna, she's not really gonna, like get onto you. But if it's like 2 tanks, for example, and they're gonna try to, like Shen, for example, he's gonna try to taunt you and whatnot, they're gonna run at you. I think having Evolve W second in that case would be pretty good, because you get to kite them, you get to make them waste their time, you get to, you get to lock them down a little bit, especially if you get the 80% slow. And then the rest of your team should be able to focus the front line down at least a little bit, wither them down a bit. And I find that it helps in that case. A lot of the time people get E second, and I feel like that's not 100% like always the best thing to do in cases like that one, for example.
Okay, that's solid. Yep. All right, Nutty, I gotta ask you. You here?
What's up?
All right, there's a Shen, there's a Maokai, there's an Orianna, there's a Kog'Maw, and then there's a Janna with Ardent.
You get the fuck out of there.
What is Nutty doing? What is Nutty doing in that situation?
I hide in my jungle and I pray to God that one of them DCs.
Go next.
All right.
I mean, you just gotta look for splitting pressure, obviously, because you can pick Orianna really easily. You can pick who'd you say the AD carry was?
Kog'Maw.
Kog'Maw. You can pick Kog'Maw really easily. But the thing is, in high elo, like that Janna is probably the E-girl duo with that Kog'Maw, and she's not leaving. Like she's fucking hugging him. Like they're full on E-sexing. Like that's what happens.
They're leaving the game together.
Yeah, exactly. So you can't really look for picks in those situations. So you have to look for picks on Orianna or like Shen or something like that. And you can pick tanks. It's not like you completely avoid them. If a tank's alone, you can kill them. Like that's the whole point of new KhaZix is he has fucking infinite damage because his cooldown is just so low that you can actually kill tanks if you pick them. Obviously, you have to have a teammate with you to have.
You just have to macro your Q.
Getting baited. Yeah. So
it's like a. Oh, sorry, no.
Is a what?
Are you still going? Are you still talking?
No. Sorry, what were you saying?
Oh, sorry. I was just gonna say, I think something that's like kind of useful in some situations is like if it's like you're versing one of these like protect the carry comp sort of things, and a hectic fight breaks out. I think sometimes you can get away with like say they got a Lulu or something, and if you've got enough burst to just one shot them and they isolate themselves, so you can go for it, that can really like fuck over the enemy because you can just get that you just like you take away the peel aspect and then you can then clean up the rest of the fight instead of going for the carry themselves because like a lot of these players that play the Janna and stuff, they just sit there and look at their carry and they're like, when this bloody KhaZix comes in, I'm gonna fucking wreck his day, but then you just kill them. So I don't know, it's sort of like a specific scenario where you can actually do that, but it's sort of like catching them off guard as Tinges was saying earlier. It's that sort of mindset.
I also want to add against protect the ADC comps,
Mm-hmm.
you don't always have to assassinate. You can a lot of the times say like I'm going to use Lulu as an example. When you jump onto the ADC, Lulu's most likely going to ult the carry. And if you decide to back off once she ults, that's pretty much an ult wasted. If you get what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You
So sometimes you can just jump in and not do anything. Simply jumping in will apply pressure and burn cooldowns.
Yeah, agree. There's a lot of different reasons like that. It's important to not try to team fight anything because you're gonna lose 90% of the time unless you're so ahead that like you can abuse it and just one shot even through shields, but that's like very rare. So you just have to look for splits, look for picks, look for different objectives that you can take, and try to close out the game early.
Nick said if you're waiting for a pick, where are you waiting? In the jungle, behind your team, or I think you wanted to know specifically where you're standing.
That just
like
depends.
On the side of both teams for the most part. You don't want to be behind your team ever. You don't want to be in front of your team ever. You don't want to be with your team. You want to be in a side bush. That's you want to be in a bush that's swept so they don't see you. They don't want to. You need to make sure they don't know when you're going to jump in. So if that means, let's say you're having a fight at mid lane. I'll just give you an example. And the fight's happening, let's say directly in the mid lane. You use your sweeper, go around, near blue buff, around towards the behind their team. If they don't see you, you can set up a really good flank position. And sure, you might be behind enemy lines, but you can always jump out if shit hits the fan. And you want to be setting up those flank locations. You don't want to be behind your team. You don't even want to be with your team. That's not your job. Your job is to flank.
Mm-hmm.
So as long as you're off on the side, that's where you want to be. You want to be out of vision, off on the side, every time.
You guys have any last thoughts on that before we move on?
Fuck Janna.
Yeah.
Same.
Yeah, this is not a fun meta, dude. Shield and tanks, really fun.
Gonna lose against this gen right now. It's pretty sad.
Oh no.
Zona, Janna, Lulu, and then we haven't even gotten to tanks. Feels bad.
Yeah. Unfortunate.
Unlucky meta, dude. We can go next question.
Okay. So Masquerade asked, I'll unmute him if he wants to say anything, but is it bad?
What?
Yeah, my bad. Mass will never speak anyway. He said, is it bad to watch your bot lane die while you take dragon?
Yes. Unless it's Infernal Drake, then fuck them, dude. Just take Infernal.
Oh yeah, it depends on what HP the dragon's at. If the dragon's at 900 HP, just finish the damn thing. If the dragon's at 5000 HP, yeah, stop it. Like, go help them.
If you can even win the fight, though, you gotta make sure you can actually But 90% of the time, like if bot lane's fighting, then their bot lane should be like half HP, and that's an easily winnable fight for you.
But I do
pick
want
up a
to
double.
remember what Drake you're tanking, because like if you're taking a water Drake and your bot lane starts fighting, it's gonna take you like 4 minutes to get there, just because water Drake will slow you by like 70%. So don't forget that the different Drakes do different things to you too.
Also, you can somewhat manage your bot lane as they're positioning before it happens to just spam ping them back as you're doing dragon and try to communicate it so they don't fight while you're doing it. But yeah, you guys have anything else for that? For dragons?
Nah, pretty much.
Ignoring your team to do objectives like that.
I think that's it.
Okay. This one was asked by Melon Duck. I'll unmute him, but he asked, should you pick specific paths versus specific junglers? And he says, for example, say against a Lee Sin or a Shaco, who are prone to invade easily low Earlas, or junglers with strong early ganks like Warwick, Evelyn, and Elise.
So you kind of win early game if they invade you if you're full HP. Like if you're dueling them, unless they have like ignite or something. Even then, like you can call for your team to collapse and it's a free kill. Like you just have to play it smart. You can't just face dive them and try to fucking suicide. You know, like you just have to play it smart.
I want to make one thing important, is that if you're against a jungler like Shaco or Evelyn that'll probably try and cheese you, it's really, really beneficial for you to try and level 1 invade just to get some vision. Even if you do their top side, because okay, so let's say you get some vision down on the red buff and the Raptors. If you know they're not starting there, you know you're going, you know where they are, you know not, right? So it's more important in those kind of matchups to get level 1 vision on them, so that you know where they are at the beginning and where they go after their camp. So you know if let's say Evelyn starts Raptors and immediately goes, you have a ward on Raptors and you see her walking towards your side of the jungle rather than her red, well, you know exactly what's going to happen in 20 seconds. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So you can play around that. So I think against those kind of matchups, it's really, really crucial to get level 1 vision.
You guys have any thoughts on how you change your pathing versus specific junglers? Nutty or...
Make sure your team wards your other fucking buff if you can't control level 1, because in high elo, if they're not retarded, they're gonna do a what's it called? Forgot. What's it called level 1 when they cover each entrance? Forgot what it's called. Yeah, when they do a level 1 fan.
Yeah.
Then you can't really like go into their jungle, so you just have to make sure that your team wards your other buff, and then if she ever starts your other buff, you just take her buff and you just trade, which is like more favorable for KhaZix. Mostly, like if you don't die to an invade like that as KhaZix, you come out ahead 90% of the time because KhaZix is stronger at those points. So like, yeah, if you just don't die, you pretty much come out ahead most of the time because you can outduel them. Like you can outduel them, you can outgank them early. So
do we mention Ivern? That's a pretty good example for having to change your pathing.
I think with Ivern, you can more or less expect him to invade. So at that point, you just kind of want to walk into his jungle, and if he tries to stop you, you just kill him with the fucking Ivern. What's he gonna do? Auto attack you for 30 damage? Like, just go kill him.
The thing is about Ivern is he only goes for your buff. He never wants to kill you, and you need to use that fact.
Force fight him.
And then Masquerade, he wanted to mention something. He mentioned a ward spot in blue side jungle where you could get vision of both Gromp and Blue at the same time for the timers on it. And it's this little spot in the middle of the jungle itself, pretty much. And I kind of do agree with him on that, because a lot of the time people just ward the buff by itself. And I think getting the timer on both the camps just is obviously something a little extra, and it doesn't take much more effort to do.
I think the only problem with doing that is that you have to walk a little deeper into their jungle to do so. You have to be a little more careful doing it, because being able to ward from the entrance to the jungle is different than having to walk up to the wall.
Yeah, all deep wards come with a little more risk. Yeah.
Yes, just be careful doing it. I'm not saying it's a bad idea, just be careful.
And if you have like, I find a lot of Ivans, I think that what they do, I don't know if they still do this, like they start red or whatever, and then they go straight for your blue. I think that's what they do. It's something like that.
Yeah.
So usually I'll try and get top or mid toward my blue at like 1 minute 30 or whatever, and then if I see Ivan on that ward, I just pass straight to his other buff that's on the side that I started on, because if you see him there, he's got your buff. Like, you can't stop it. So in most circumstances, so
The only time I've
unless
ever
you
run
get
into a
someone collapse
problem.
on him.
Yeah, the only time I've ever run into a problem with that is where Ivern will have his team ward his own buff, so he'll have his mid and bot lane collapse on his blue buff when you go and invade, and the next thing you know, you're in a problem where you don't have jump, and you have 3 people collapsing on you. So sometimes it is okay to give it up, accept the fact that you're playing against an Ivern and that'll happen, kind of thing. So sometimes you do just have to say, I'm going to give it up and I'm going to accept that that's going to happen, but more often than not, you can go for the invade and just mirror their invade.
Virtue, are you still here?
Yeah, man.
Yeah, I was gonna ask how often do you drastically change your pathing depending on the matchup?
I was gonna say versus Ivern, I honestly still haven't quite narrowed it down yet because I don't really play against Ivern a lot, and the Iverns I play against usually, like in my yellow, an Ivern is either going to be decent or he's going to be retarded. So it's kind of hard to develop that strategy. So normally, I pretty much just do more or less the same thing. However, if I'm against a jungler that I know can kill me, like a Shaco with Ignite, for example, I will probably go for a less greedy path where I don't get so low, for example. Like, that's definitely something you really need to keep in mind against those junglers, is their potential to invade and kill you.
Plus, Ivern is just, in general, less commonly seen, so...
Yeah, thank God. When he was, like, in his position of power, he was just a nightmare. But, Masquerade also said that if he does ward his own buff and he invades you, his ward does expire apparently, which I didn't know, so that might be worth considering. But of course, like, the support might have warded it like really late or something. And
I'm talking about a situation where, like, you ask your top laner to ward your blue. They can do the exact same thing with their bot lane. I'm talking about those kind of situations that can get really risky.
Oh yeah, for sure. And like, if you do, like, the first thing you see, like, the first thing you should look at when Ivan invades is like the position of the lanes. Because if like your mid's getting pushed, and your bot's getting is even, like, it's generally pretty bad idea.
One thing also is when you're on your first camp. Obviously, this is specifically for like Ivern and Shaco that don't need leashes. If you see a laner take a long time to get to the lane, you can, like, okay, so let's say I'm going to go back on the blue side example. If you think Ivern's going to invade and take your blue, and then you saw their support take an extra 15 seconds to get to lane, you can assume their blue buff is warded, and that you need to be really careful going into their jungle. Because obviously Ivern doesn't need a leash, so that you can use that information to your advantage too. So make sure you're using all the tools the map gives you, and just know what you're getting yourself into before you do anything.
Yep, solid. I think if anyone has any last words on changing your jungle path, speak now or forever hold your peace. Think we're good? Yeah.
Yep. So we're coming close to the 2-hour mark. How many questions do you have left, or what kind of closing thoughts do you want to talk about?
There's like 3 or 4 decent range questions, so we'll probably go like 10 minutes over because we started a little late.
That's true. We should start late.
We can go a little late, 10 minutes or so.
Yeah, we can just try to cover them really fast. If we still have time, we just recap or something,
Yeah, because if you guys want to get some quicker questions down in the KhaZix discussion channel, and then we'll get around to it and try to go through them quick, like a lightning round at the end. But next question is, should you pick oh fuck, that's the same fucking one. I'm autistic. Okay. What would you change to our Evolve if you had an opportunity to change it?
What it was before last season?
Baby.
Yeah,
3 casts. 2 seconds.
3 casts. Feels bad, man.
Yeah, old R.
Yeah, I don't think anyone...
What's up, Waffle?
Yeah. I was just going to say, I quite like the R as it is right now, but like, my biggest, like, complaint about it is that third charge, really. It's that passive is like, I don't know, it's pretty fun to use, and now that it got its like little buff like a couple of patches ago, it's got some pretty nice uses now. So I think it's in a pretty decent spot. But yeah, that third charge would be really nice to have back, but then that might make KhaZix a bit too good. So
Yeah.
because that's like 4
With the
dust
Dust
blade
Blade.
charges potentially.
Yeah.
Like far out. A lot of people have like suggested, I've seen this suggested all the time, like what if they made his ult a charge based system, not like you cast it once and then you have to use all your charges.
Yeah, they'd be the same situation as Ari. They'd just be broken as fuck if they did that.
Yeah, I think that'd be too good because KhaZix's ult is already like you can use it pretty pretty aggressively and not worry too much. So like if you like try and gank a lane by ulting in and then like they completely back off and you kind of stuff it up, like it doesn't even matter. Like just you don't really need your ult to gank lanes anyway. So
Super something. Sheech said he would change R evolve to make it a toggle. He says it can stealth bushes that change at a max at 4 charges, and then be 3 charges with a 30 to 40 second cooldown that you can switch between invading and team fighting. It's interesting.
What?
I
You
don't
use
know.
stealth for like 30 seconds?
I don't know. He wrote it in the discussion. It seems interesting.
I think what he means is like instead of having the passive, like when you evolve it, you've got like both the passive and the active. I think what he means is like you pick one of them and then like you can switch between them. And it's like a 30-second cooldown between switching or something.
But what do you mean by you can stealth bushes that charges at a max at 4 charges? I don't understand what that means.
I don't know what it means either. I don't know. I think that's what he was trying to say though.
I mean, he's typing.
I don't really know how that would.
He says
I think he said waffle is right.
Yep.
I don't know how that'd really work though, because like how are you going to switch between the passive, like the two effects, when to use the other effect you have to use the ability. Yeah, but I don't know. I don't know how that work. Honestly, that's
Seems really gimmicky to me.
Yeah, kinda.
Yeah, I think the 30-second cooldown's way too much to switch. Like, it sort of reminds me of Quinn. Like, you know how she like goes on a bird or whatever to travel around the map, like that. The bush form, I suppose I'll call it. Like that'd be used for mobility most of the time. So, because you get that move speed traveling between bushes and stuff.
It's assassin Timo.
But yeah, that's a weird one to analyze. I don't know.
Crash, what do you usually feel is missing right now with the R evolve, or how would you change it? If you're...
I'm not really like gonna go into depth, but like just like the stealth, like going in and out of bushes, like sometimes I have problems with that. But like the duration of the stealth isn't a problem, but just you know how you use it. Like maybe you could go into a bush and then stealth for a certain amount of time, and maybe they change the time. But I don't feel like it's as great as it could be just having the stealth in and out of the bush.
Yeah. Okay, that's fair enough. You guys have any closing thoughts on what could be desired from R evolve, or any ideas?
I would definitely like to say that I think 3 charges is completely out of line balance-wise, and I think the big thing there is how much more damage KhaZix passive does now this season compared to last year.
Especially now with Dust Blade.
I mean, I think everyone knows that his passive is nerfed. I think everyone's come to agreement that his passive is way too much damage right now and needs to get fucking gutted.
Yeah,
it just needs
really
to get
nerfed.
He needs more damage on his Q and less damage on his passive. It's unfun for both, right? Like, we don't want to play an auto attack champion, and laners don't want to get one shot in lane by a fucking isolation champ. I think it's really unfun for both sides, in my opinion.
When your primary damage source has nothing to do with your primary mechanic of isolation, then there's a problem.
Yeah, exactly.
No, for real. I think R in general though is incredibly underrated, and I wouldn't really understand a big desire to change it at this point. Like maybe you could buff the out of combat movement speed, but besides that, like I think it's honestly fine and pretty underrated. Like at the very least, below diamond, you can make use of it in like
it's
effective.
It's definitely it's cool. It's definitely viable now, especially with that buff that they did like 2 or 3 patches ago. And yeah, I think most of the time, like I think when people say they want the 3 charges back, like I think most people know that that would be pretty busted because I mean KhaZix is already very good right now. Like if they just like randomly said, oh yeah, we're just making KhaZix have a 3rd charge back, like that would just be retarded.
If they were to revert the R evolve, they would have to revert the whole thing, whereas damage is back on his Q rather than his passive. They wouldn't really have a choice.
So, Rob, you got any closing thoughts?
Nope.
Nutty, add anything into what you would think our evolve should be?
I would just change it back to the 3 charges, but obviously other changes would have to be made if you did that. But I mean, at the end of the day, I don't think R is that big of a deal. I wouldn't really care if it got changed. I really don't care about R. My main concern is Q. Passive.
Okay, we should move on then, because we have a few more to go over. Super Sheetle or whatever says, when I have given a lane a big lead, what lane should I be helping then? Or should I stay in a lane to get pressure?
I think it depends on what objectives you can get.
He had like a second part. He said, do I keep giving a lead to my laners or get Drake in objectives?
I think it depends on what kind of objectives you can get. Like if you got your mid ahead, is the turret low? Can you go force that turret down? If the turret's not low, do they have priority where you can just go get a dragon? I think it depends on what objectives. You obviously, if you have 2 or 3 objectives you can take, you don't want to go for the hardest one for no reason. You want to go for the easiest one. So if you have priority in mid and bot, just go for dragon. Or if the bot lane's low, just go threaten a dive, force them off, get a free turret, then get the dragon. Do whatever flows the best for your game based on the pressure that you've already gotten.
Yeah, that's fair. You guys, anything else to add to that?
Nope. I agree. 100%.
Okay. We're kind of low on questions now, so if you guys wanna.
Well, I mean it's 8 anyways. Like we close it up.
Yeah, we can wrap it up if you guys don't have any other general questions about KhaZix or just jungling or the state of the game right now.
Yeah, I feel like the state of the game right now, like I feel so bored when I'm playing. And, like I enjoy KhaZix, but just walking up to auto attack people, like it's not enough for me. And I just wish that minor changes would be made, that KhaZix would be changed, and then not so much the jungle, but just the playstyle that KhaZix has. Like his evolutions are, they could be tweaked a bit, like putting charges back in his ultimate. That's fine with me, but just the general enjoyability of KhaZix is just lower for me right now.
Yeah.
Revert armor pen to lethality, or revert lethality to armor pen, or revert assassin rework. Thanks, right, please.
Yeah, I think everyone agrees that KhaZix, like, don't get me wrong, KhaZix is way stronger than he's ever been, but he's not fun to play. Like, they changed the whole playstyle. He went from, like, a burst assassin to, like, a sustained damage fighter. Like, it doesn't make any sense at all. Like, when you look at KhaZix, do you think, like, bruiser, sustained damage fighter? Hell no. I think an assassin.
Yeah.
Like when you look at KhaZix, do you think he's gonna walk up and smack you with his claws, or do you think he's gonna like one-shot you with like cutting you? He's not made to bitch slap you with claws, like. My opinion. Nerf passive, revert Q, and then I'm happy. That's all I want.
Yeah. There was one question from the subreddit that we could go over as like one of the last questions, which is just generally some mechanics that most people don't know, or combos, or just being more efficient with inputting your abilities. Like, is there a general standard combo that you want to use that's the most efficient or fastest?
Well,
Q auto attack W.
Yeah. That's like
That's
the
it.
most basic combo.
Mhm.
Your fastest combo, which is you kind of need in certain situations, like if you're waiting a brush and face checking it, your fastest possible damage combo is WT Mech Q auto smite.
Yeah.
Obviously, whenever WQ animation cancel is pretty important on camps. It's just overall faster to WQ. Trying to think what else. That's about it, really.
Mhm. I think there's some stuff with like some weird like little mechanics. Like the one thing that's kind of general is checking if there's a ward if your passive goes on cooldown or not, or comes back up when you walk in a bush to see if it's warded. It's like some other things, other like little mechanics people don't
Your
realize.
passive doesn't go away though.
Oh,
No,
Whatever.
if you gank mid lane and you walk back in the bush and your passive is not up, then
yeah,
you
it doesn't
don't
come
You know
back.
it's warded, and then you use the new ping enemy vision here, and you spam it.
Exactly.
Yep. And then
Yeah.
whenever you're playing KhaZix, you want to hold your E at all costs. That's a pretty important mechanic.
Mhm.
There's been like a little thing which I've been like jotting down notes about. It's an idea I've had for a little while, and I was just gonna like it's like gonna be a video that I was gonna make. It's going to be about like just about all the mechanical stuff I know about KhaZix, like all the little nitty gritty shit. Like, and I've like been jotting it down over like last couple of weeks. Just whenever I like got some free time, like, well, what else can I think of? Like, let me just go through some random stuff. Like, you like, for example, like your Q, like it gets cancelled when you lose vision of your target, but it won't get cancelled if your target flashes away. Like just little things like that.
Mhm.
So, I don't know when. Long or pretty like big like project because I was going to go in depth into a lot of little things, but I was going to like edit it in a way that it's really like to the point, and like I'm not going to commentate. It's going to be like text sort of thing, just so you can read it and know, you know. So it's just really like straightforward, and it just explains like all the little things. Because yeah, I mean I've played this bloody champ for like 3 years almost, but I think actually no longer than that now. And yeah, there's like a lot of little things that I've noticed happen that like if people kind of know about, yeah, like I don't know, it's just like really small micro stuff, I suppose.
Mhm.
So yeah.
I think a lot of people would enjoy something like that.
Yeah, because that's like my sort of strength on KhaZix. I'm not the best sort of macro player. I'm pretty dumb. I'm not very smart. So with my decision making, and I do some pretty stupid stuff sometimes, and sometimes I like go through some pretty big tilt, like right now. But my strength is the mechanical sort of thing. So as I said, I don't know when this thing's going to be done. Because I'm going to try and cram as much as possible into it, so I want to make sure I don't miss anything. But I think I've almost got most of the notes down for what I wanted to do, and now I just have to figure out how I'm actually going to make the video and then do it. So, yeah.
I think people would love a video on that, to be honest. Virtue, you were saying something?
Oh, I was just saying, I think that'd be really helpful.
Oh, yeah.
I think that's something that we don't necessarily have right now all in one place, so I think it'd be really beneficial.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's something I was like thinking about. There's a few like videos which talked about like advanced KhaZix mechanics, like doing a double jump. Wow. But yeah, like I mean, I could like copy and paste a few of the notes I've got here. If you want, like just in the KhaZix discussion after we I'll just like paste a few things that I've jotted down just from like my own like observations or like from what I've learnt from whatever. It's
Sure.
I'll put that down after when we finish.
Yeah, Tingus, you got anything for any mechanics or tricks or things that notable?
there's not really anything notable. I mean, did you know you could EQE and it does a double jump?
Yeah.
Wait,
what?
Yeah, interesting.
Wait, really?
Hmm.
Holy shit.
It reminds me of when I played on OC with Tingus when we sat in a custom game for 40 minutes and he practiced where you
I don't know what
could
you're
stealth.
talking about.
It didn't work very well, but you could stealth in the middle of your double jump.
Oh
And then
yeah,
when
the invisible
something
jump.
like that. Yeah, you'd have an
It's-
invisible
that's
jump.
just
Yeah.
way too hard to do. You can't do it. It's so hard.
It's like insane.
Yeah.
Impossible.
Like that's what a lot of like this like video is going to talk about. Like it's those really like small little tips that won't matter in about 99% of circumstances, but if you have knowledge of it and you can abuse it, like you could probably like get like a fucking sick montage clip out of it. So
Mhm. Yeah, that's how we saw it. Someone like stealth mid double jump. That looked so good.
yeah, like one of the things I got is like you can, if you auto attack when you do elite, you can actually, and like the auto attack kills someone, you can actually double jump off that auto.
Mm.
And I had one of those clips in one of my montages, but like actually like doing it in games is like no, you don't. Like it's just impossible.
Yeah.
So, and it's something you like, and like why would you even do that when you can just queue? You know, like there's no point.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
I think that's it for little KhaZix mechanics. Virtuebot, do you want like a chance to talk about any items while you're here, in case you can't make a next one? Any like in-depth items you want to go over?
I mean, you can just read what I posted if you want to know itemization. But I think I watched the last one. I think you guys pretty much covered everything. Like Duskblade is what you get. Like Warrior Duskblade, 100%. Then if you want the highest damage, you get Tiamat. After that. But if you don't care about having the highest damage possible, you can pretty much just go into whatever situational after Duskblade. And then obviously if you verse tanks, like LDR is super cost efficient. And it's actually, one thing I definitely wanted to touch on that's kind of curious is that Cleaver actually isn't more damage efficient versus tanks or squishies. Like it ends up getting about the same damage efficiency. And so I thought that was pretty interesting. Besides that, yeah, so also if you're going the full damage route, like after Tiamat, normally if you just get Serrated Dirk after that, it's generally enough damage to one-shot with like, you know, a Q and 2 passive procs. So you can stop your damage there if you want. Also, I don't know where we landed on Edge of Night. But I think like damage efficiency-wise, it's pretty much on par with Ghostblade. So given how many CDR options you have, I see no reason why it's not worth it to build sometimes at least. Besides that, though, I think we pretty much covered everything last time.
Okay. I mean, your post is expansive enough, so if any of you guys want to check it out after the links in the discussion, you put a lot of time into it, so you guys could appreciate. It's pretty beautiful.
Very impressive.
Yeah.
I can run stuff for you too if you have scenarios like combos or like any of your games. Like it's generally pretty easy to run, so just let me know.
I think that should be it. You guys have any last questions? Because we could wrap up now. We're about at the end.
Yeah, I think we should just wrap up.
Yeah. So.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, guys. It was fun. We'll be posting the VOD up and announcements in the KhaZix discussion when it is in a video. So.
I just realised I didn't stick to not swearing.
Oh no.
I realised halfway through. I was like, oh god.
Dude, this guy.
Oh boy.
This guy's toxic.
Yeah, this guy's toxic as fuck.
I'll unmute everyone. In the call.
That was sweet.
Do you want to move to a different? You can move to a different channel and talk about how like it went. We want to do.
Hold on. Let me unmute dog.
We have to do something for dog.